it All Around the Fire. We call it Around the Fire because it was kind of our idea to realize that Jesus taught so much in stories and in parables. And as Sam said last week, like 35% of all we have from Jesus comes in like parabolic form. And so we thought, man, how interesting would it be to draw near Jesus as a friend or a bro and just like listen to him tell his stories. We all perk up around those. But the thing that's different about Jesus and his stories is that they were special. Jesus had this way, this beautiful way of teaching how to get in step on earth according to the rhythm of eternity. And every one of Jesus' stories that we have on record, every one of them teach how life and heaven work and how they work together. And so we've been about the business of drawing near Jesus to hear his stories this summer. Now the story that we're gonna talk through today, I consider unique because it's a story that covers every one of his stories, every one of his teachings. I'll set the scene for you. If you want to follow along in your Bible, go to Matthew chapter 5, 6, 7, okay? Open the app or flip open to the page, and here's the setting. We're on the side of a mountain, and Jesus is there, and he is aware of two different crowds or two different groups of people in that setting. In fact, it says in Matthew chapter 5 that he saw the crowds gathering, and so he went up on the mountainside, then he sat down, and his disciples gathered around him, and then he began to teach. So who's the two groups? Well, he's got a crowd that's gathering. He sees an opportunity. And the crowd that's gathering is it's full of cynics, it's full of curious people, it's full of people who want to become more intellectual. They're not signed up for nothing, but they're willing to lean in and to listen. He's also got his disciples with him. And these are people who have signed up to follow Jesus. As clumsy as they make it, they've decided, I want to learn how to follow Jesus. He's got both groups. And so what he decides to do is to speak to everybody by teaching his crew, right? And I realize that every Sunday, we have both of those groups represented pretty much every Sunday. And here we are on the side of Mount Metro, or whatever we got here. You're here. And Jesus sat down. That's Bible language. It's cultural language. A rabbi would sit down in order to teach his disciples. It was his posture of sort of accepting the role he had to be their teacher. Like some of you guys think that I talk this way, on Thursday at Target. I don't. But when you come here and it's my job to talk to you this way, then I just settle and I go, okay, they want to hear what I have to say. So Jesus has sat down to teach his disciples, but the crowds see something happen, and so they're all gathered around, and Jesus realizes just because they're listening in, they're not signed up. And this is what he does. He starts to teach them. What does he teach? It's going to take your Bible 3 full chapters to describe all the things, for the writer, Matthew, to describe all the things that Jesus taught that day. This body of information is famously known as, the Sermon on the Mount. Chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7. But he ends it all. He wraps it up with this one story to rule them all. This one story that covers all of his stories, all of his teachings. Have you wondered what the story is? So you find the story in Matthew chapter 7. Dare you to find it. Matthew chapter 7, verse 24. Jesus says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Now, I recognize it's Father's Day. Who is not up for a construction story on Father's Day? How many people here put their hand up proudly would say you consider yourself in the trades? You're one of those people. Thank you, men, women. How many people here? I'm not in the trades, but I am a great weekend warrior. Where are you at? Absolutely. I have saved my family a lot of money by handling a lot of our own projects. Some of them I'm proud of. And then I've also screwed up enough stuff at my house to have paid the stupid tax on that as well. Maybe you're like me, but you're always up for a good construction story. Well, listen, construction story dead ahead. That's the nature of the story. And before we really get into the story, you might find yourself a little resistant. And you might say, well, what business does a rabbi have trying to teach me about construction? I didn't think their collars were blue necessarily. I thought It was like black with white square or something like that, right? Like what would he even know about construction? This is a great opportunity to remind you as we get into the story, we kind of have to also, it helps the story to get into the storyteller. Do not forget that what we know about from the Bible is that Jesus was a trades guy. Jesus, it's clear and marked, he picked up his daddy's trade. It's basically probably what he did up until this point in his life, so maybe 20. Even 25 years, he has been in the business of what? Well, he's famously known as a carpenter. That's the word that we find in English. But actually, the Greek word it comes from is tekton, which means this is like a craftsman of multiple kinds of materials. And in Jesus' day, where he was from, it was more likely that he worked more with like stone and brickwork than anything else. But the point is that up to this point in Jesus' life, that's what he did. That's what he knew. So, what should you be picturing when you picture the storyteller? You should be picturing a man who is 30 years old. He is labor-toned and speaks knowledgeably about construction. He has a utility knife on his belt most of the time, right? His boots are steel-toed, he's got calloused hands, and if he offers to lend you a hand, you're not surprised when he follows it with, my tools are in the truck. Like, this is the kind of guy that you should be picturing listening to Rabbi Jesus. Jesus was the kind of guy that you would bump into at Menards and he could help you find what you're looking for, even though he hasn't worked at Menards a single day in his life. We know those guys. Jesus is telling the story, and he says, look, you want to build a house? Hey, if you want to build a house, the wisest thing to do is build it on solid rock. And sure, care about the scenery. Fine, figure out what you can plant in the back 20 or 40. Totally, pay attention to what school district you put your kid in. Fine, but listen, when we're talking about construction integrity, if you want to talk to me about construction that will last, then you've got to start by snapping lines on solid rock. And then he explains why. Look at verse 25. He says, though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it's not going to collapse because it's built on bedrock. See, Jesus knows something about construction, that you get the best building outcomes when you plan with the worst case scenarios in mind. Right? Now, anybody here who's ever traveled to the southwestern United States, maybe even from there, you're probably familiar as you drive around. You see a lot of these huge concrete canals. It's a very dry area of the United States. It's very hot. Why would they build these huge concrete canals that are typically bone dry most of the year? Why is that? It's because if you're from around there, you know that when it rains. That water moves. When it rains in the desert, it rolls off, and those torrential rains will fill those canals. Those canals will not just get wet. They will become full with water. It will create this huge, savage torrent. They plan all that because they know it's coming. We just have an opportunity to route it. And so maybe you're not from Phoenix, or maybe you haven't been to that area, and it's in some of the less built-out areas in the southwest United States. They call them arroyos, or closer to Jesus' day, in the Middle East, including Israel. They're not called arroyos, they're called wadis, and they're so common that there are places named after them. Here's the point. Jesus' audience understood that once in a while, you don't expect rain to come often, but once in a while it will come. And when it comes hard. What Jesus is pointing out for them is that in the moment when the torrents come, it's not going to matter what materials you used to build. It's not going to matter your specific strategy or your specific construction technique. It's not going to matter how old or new your house is. He said, let me read it again. Though the rain comes in torrents, the floodwaters rise, the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it's built on bedrock. All the construction, all that you make is resting on the foundation, this idea of bedrock. It's solid rock. It goes down way too deep. It goes out way too far to be a guess later on. Bedrock is a sure thing. Bedrock is not going to go anywhere. We're not building for the weekend. We're not building for next year. We're talking about lifetimes later, centuries later, bedrock's going to be there, and so whatever structure you attach to it stands its best chances as well. The best building outcomes always start with the worst case scenarios in mind. So Jesus is halfway through his story, and it's a pretty simple story, but then he goes on. It's in verse 26. He says, but. How many people have learned? Anytime God, and then Jesus says, but. You better listen. He says, but anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. Because when the rains and the floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse. It will collapse with a mighty crash. Loud, sudden, messy, huge fallout. This is how Jesus wraps up the sermon on now. And all the homemakers out there said, oh my, I hope nobody was hurt. And then all the dudes listening were like, yeah, see, I wouldn't have built it that way. Because that's kind of how we think when we analyze each other's stuff. Well, why wouldn't you have built it that way, genius? Well, Jesus typically, I don't know how common it was there in Palestine to build on sand, but Jesus typically had this element to his stories where people would listen and go, nah, come on, who does that? This would definitely be one of those moments. Why don't you build on sand? Well, because sand shifts. Sand moves. It changes. You can't count on it. There's nothing lasting about it. If there were, there would be no beaches, because for the last 6,000 years, all of our sandcastles would still be there. But that's not the way sand is. There's nothing lasting about it, and so there's nothing dependable about it. Now, there's something about the story that I don't want us to miss. This story has never been known throughout history. This story has never been known as the parable of the lucky and the unlucky builder, where there was two really great guys who spent 3 to 9 months building their dream home, and one of them is just this poor, unfortunate soul, where all this bad karma or something just comes wailing on him. He loses everything. It was so unjust. While this other guy ends up fine, because nothing bad ever comes his way. And his story ends with him posing with his family in front of a white picket fence, for Christmas cards or something like that. Please notice about the story. Look for yourself. Tell me if I'm wrong. The same extreme weather affects them both. Yes or no? The same misfortune, the same tragedies. It all comes both of their way. Life is like that. True or false? It is a broken place down here. I'll give you a line from Jesus early in the Sermon on the Mount. He says it this way. He says, God gives his sunlight both to the evil and the good. He sends rain on the just and the unjust. And you and I live in a life, we don't each receive the same exact lightning strikes, but we all get some. Yes or no? We do. And they can devastate us. And so it would be a misunderstanding to walk away from this going, man, that's just too bad for that one guy. And why did God pick one, not the other? No. This is not the parable of the lucky and the unlucky builder. This is the parable of the wise and the foolish builder. They each had a choice. That's what I want you to hear. They each have a choice on how to build. They had a choice on how to end up. And they essentially, based on that, they got what they deserved because of their decisions, because of their forward-thinking, wise decisions, or their reckless, foolish decisions. Each of them got what they deserved. And Jesus paints a vivid picture for us. It's worth you and me seeking to see ourselves in the story. Our first objective this morning was to go through the story. Our objective now is to grow through the story. How do we grow through what Jesus is telling us here? Well, I want to take it back to the text one more time. I want to focus on a piece that we haven't focused on yet, because that's the extent of the story. But now I want to point us to the words that give us the clear purpose. The clear purpose of the story. He starts off with anyone. Please raise your hand if you're part of anyone. He says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise. Like a person who builds a house on solid rock. And then he says, anyone, please raise your hand if you're part of anyone. He says, anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish. Like a person who builds a house on sand. What Jesus is steering us toward, he's promoting a life that is built on the merit of our ability to re-ask 2 questions. How much am I listening to Jesus? How much am I obeying what I heard him say? Listen, obey. When do I listen to Jesus? How much time do I put into finding a new way to obey what I've heard? That's what it all comes down to. Jesus says that is what going to separate the wise from the foolish. And not just in this life, but also in the life to come, which he was very candid about. Jesus wants you and me to know today that he sees value in you. The life that you're living, he says, that is a life worth making well. It's a life worth building to last. But it's your life. And it's your choices that are going to build that life. And the single foundational decision where you build, that single foundational decision will make the difference down the road of all your other decisions. They all hang on that one decision. So how do you and I grow through this story? Well, we decide to do something about our life that most homeowners forget to do. You take your eyes off the gutters and the shutters once in a while, and you go back to the foundation, because the foundation is so critical. And the value of the whole structure is not ultimately going to rest on all that stuff if the foundation is no good. So I want to show us how to do that. Building a better life comes down to 3 simple words. Trust Jesus better. Trust Jesus better. Because I'm not asking you to build a life. You're already doing it. And as you continue to build this week, as you continue to build a life in this summer, as you near this tipping point where we're already halfway through 2021, what are you going to build? Trust Jesus better. How can I listen to what he's saying? How can I obey what I've heard him say? So I want to give you 4 ideas. I want to invite you to do something right now. If you're a pen and paper person, great. Start taking some notes. Otherwise, pull your phone out, text yourself. Ready? And I want to give you 4 ideas I want you to consider this week. My bet is that one of the 4 is going to be your favorite. You can forget the other 3. You have my permission. All right? But these all come from the text. And they're all under this heading of how we can trust Jesus better so that we can build a better life. Jesus cares about your life. I know you do. How can we trust Jesus better to build a better life? Idea number 1, trust Jesus first. Those are the 3 words. Write them down. Trust Jesus first. What do I mean by that? Trust Jesus first. Listening and obeying, that's trust. Trust Jesus first is that if you've ever built a new structure, whether we were talking about a shed in the backyard or you got to build your own house, you know you start with the foundation. You know that you don't move ahead until you settle the matter of the foundation. A wise builder knows that where you build is a matter of priority. And I just want to throw out there that you might be in a season that I have been in where we just don't treat the foundation as a priority matter. And maybe this week the best thing for you to do is to start saying, I'm not just going to generally trust Jesus, I'm going to trust Jesus first. I need to readopt what Jesus says in and about my life as a priority matter. It goes from being a spectator and sort of a casual fan, but then moving on and listening to everybody else equally. It moves from that to building your life in a way where if Jesus went away, you believe it would all fall apart. Trust Jesus first. And the way I want to kind of encourage you to think this way, or maybe entice you to think this way, is just to assure you, maybe this is special for somebody's heart today, is I want to remind you something, that Jesus talking is not like anybody else talking. Jesus is special. if you have your Bible open, I'll just kind of dance you through some new observations I made about the story, is that after he closes the story, he closes the sermon. And everybody zips up their Bibles or, whatever they do. And then this is what the Bible says. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching. For he taught with real authority, quite unlike their teachers of religious law. See, the entire crowd, whether they were in or not quite so in, they still recognized that Jesus was amazing. That Jesus was special. Why? It was because the most respected voices that they had ever heard, they were always evaluated and graded on their ability to quote other intellects. Here's the thing about Jesus. They recognized right away, this is not a copy-paste teacher. Jesus is special. When Jesus spoke, it wasn't as a person who had opinions. It was as a person who had authority. Jesus was special. What Jesus says is special. It should encourage you to trust Jesus first. You know what happens after that? I mean, our Bible, we start a new chapter, but this is crazy. While he's coming down the mountain, Matthew records his first healing miracle. A leper comes up to him out of the crowd, and that's like a huge no-no that day. Leprosy was a feared disease. This would be just like as bad as a COVID patient, walking out of quarantine with no mask and just, kissing everybody. Leprosy walks right up to Jesus and says, wow, you're special. I bet you could heal me right now. And you know what Jesus goes? No. He says, okay, boop, you're healed. And Matthew records that instantly the leprosy left his skin. He can rejoin society. He's a healthy person. Listen, Jesus' words are special. They're magical. They're spiritual. They're eternal. They are better. And the encouragement this week, trust Jesus first. What does that mean? Well, it means take your Jesus learning time and consider it more important than all your other book reading time and podcast listening time and TEDx learning time. If you've got Jesus music, consider that better music than the rest of your music. Why? Well, not because it's got a better beat, but because it's got Jesus' words in it. That's called priority. You look at that as foundational to your life. This is a new observation for me, so listen carefully. Do you want to know what the most foolish part of the fool's decision was in his building? It wasn't that he built on sand. Do you know what it was? It's that he built on sand when he totally could have built on rock. That's different. That's what Jesus meant when he said, anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't build on it, that is the king of fools. Jesus is special. When you have access to his words, you don't throw them on top of the rest of the pile. Trust Jesus first. That's idea number one. The rest of it we're going to fly. The second idea is this. You know what? I got to say this. When it comes to trust Jesus first, I want to have a special dad-to-dad sort of encouragement. And this isn't just for the dads. This is for the moms. This is for the grandparents. This is for the foster parents. This is for all of our great teachers, our kids ministry workers and heritage kids. I love you. Listen, let's help our kids trust Jesus first, okay? Because they're not that far in a building, right? And listen, the more you route them to Jesus, the more you'll be showing them where to build. And they won't probably recognize the value of that today. They might not see it as important. You might be somewhere saying, well, I want my kid to grow up and choose. Yes, but show them where to build. They'll build. It's their house. But when you point them to Jesus, you show them where to build. And I promise you, they will thank you several storms later. Trust Jesus first. Here's the second idea. Trust Jesus step by step. Number 2, trust Jesus step by step. There's a lot of people here. IKEA or whatnot, you put it together, you don't want to read the instructions, right? Because we want to just kind of chase the big vision outside of the sequence of the thing. But what does Jesus say? Jesus says, he who hears my teaching and follows it. He who hears my teachings and follows it. His point is, it's not enough to just have the land. At some point, you got to put some sticks of lumber together and actually start doing one thing at a time. A solid build of a life does not come with embracing Jesus as an idea. We don't expect to follow him like we follow a celebrity on Twitter, where there's this distance there, and you're free to disagree whenever you want to. And And it's just a very casual thing that you don't really have to concentrate much on, but you follow them. That's not what Jesus is talking about. Jesus says that following him comes down to seeing a connection between him and your everyday decisions. That's what it means to trust Jesus step by step. Let's go back to the story. I'll tell you, in the life of Live, Courtney and I, everybody's got their kind of like their wish list or their aim list or their bucket list or whatever it is for their house. I'd say probably on the top 10 ideas we'd like to do in our house is we would like to put tile all the way up the sink wall of the kitchen and kind of redo the counters. We've talked about that a lot. We don't have the time, we don't have the money right now, but when we do, I'm pretty sure we're going to do that one day. And if you told me, hey, Live, next week you will have the time and the resources to pull that project up, I would be very excited. I would love to tackle that. Courtney would too. If you also told me that a week after that our entire house would implode, do you think I would go ahead with the tile and the backsplash in the car? Well, why not? It's the next thing, right? Because you wouldn't either, because once you see that next project in connection with the foundational issues, once you connect that next task in front of you with the matter of what rests on the foundation, you hold off. And you're a wiser builder for it. Jesus is suggesting that you trust him not just like once and for all time, but step by step. And then if you're going to build on solid rock, it should be seen in how you date. And it should be seen in how you eat. And it should be seen in how you bank, and how you surf the net, and how you treat your spouse, and how you discipline your kid, and how you talk over the fence with your neighbor, and how you climb the corporate ladder. All these things, step by step, piece by step. But piece you go ahead or you hold off in connection with the foundation. Here's a dirty little secret of our kind. I'll out myself. You can decide if you're in my club. Every one of us have privately asked this question multiple times in our lives. How much building on sand can I do and get away with it? Right? Am I all by myself here? Yeah, your pastor's a horrible person. How much building on sand can I do in my life and get away with it? Well, you know what? The goal of this is to bring it down to you and Jesus. You know what Jesus is going to say? He's going to say, I don't know. How much you want to lose? How much jeopardy do you want to put you and yours in? To that extent, go ahead. Build on sand, but I wouldn't advise it. I came to teach you not to. But bringing Jesus into every conversation and every decision, if you do that, you will be building on solid rock step by step. So, this is what we're going to try this week and this year. Trust Jesus first. Trust Jesus step by step. Here's a third idea for you. Trust Jesus no matter what. And this is my encouragement prime for anybody who specifically is kind of looking at, has sort of a social perspective of this. And lately you feel like you've just kind of been holding off building on solid rock. And there are reasons for that. Maybe for you, you would say, well, I kind of build on sand because everybody I like, everybody I want to be like, everybody who's as cool as me or cooler, they're all building on sand. And that's where I build. Or maybe you would say, I don't know, I build on sand just because the way I grow up, and it's just what I've always done. Or maybe you would say, man, I'd like to build on solid rock, but I'm just afraid I'll be the only one there. You know what, I would point to like my years as like working with kids and high schoolers and things like that. In those formative years when people are really trying to figure out who they want to be and trying to get a handle on their identity, I've seen this too. Hey, I'm a Christian kid. I grew up in the church. I know good and well where solid rock is, but gosh, I just don't feel like an original. And so I feel like I need to go do some building on sand just to kind of prove that I'm me and my choices are mine. Do you know what Jesus would like to say to any one of us? He would say this: building on sand is a bad idea. Building on sand is a bad idea. I do not care where you are from or who you are or what your story is. Building on sand is a bad idea. Don't do it. You're not setting yourself up to win. You're not setting yourself up for your future. And perhaps the dare your heart needs today is this one. Hey, listen and obey. Listen and obey. Trust Jesus no matter what. No matter how hard the storms get. Look, I promise you, we're all in this life together. We're all going to lose a few shingles. It's not the lucky and the unlucky. Jesus is not trying to give us a plan for popularity. He's not trying to give us a strategy on how to fit in or how to stick out. What is Jesus trying to do? He's trying to help you build a life that sticks. And if the distraction lately has been a reason not to build on solid rock, set that aside. Listen to Jesus. Take his coaching above everybody else's. Idea number 4. Trust Jesus first. Trust Jesus step by step. Trust Jesus no matter what. And trust Jesus ultimately. Trust Jesus ultimately. If you've got your Bible still open and you look at the context and you see the things that Jesus has been saying, like really largely all the way through chapter 7 up until this story, the context makes it very clear that Jesus is talking on several levels here to a depth. He's saying that decision by decision, you are not just building an earth destiny. You are building an eternal destiny. You are choosing that. Remember, that's the point of Jesus' stories. They always showed us how life and heaven work and how they work together. And Jesus knows something about our kind, the kind that he graciously came to join, is that a storm is coming for every one of us. Every one of us. It is the storm that you should be most concerned about. It's the storm that he came to put in vivid color for us. It's the storm that is created by you and me and our own sin, our personal, private rebellions against the God who lovingly created us and who ultimately has rights to our life, the life we were supposed to be living for and around and centered on him, and we ripped it off from him so we could do our own thing and sort of be the king of our own hearts. You know, the prophet Isaiah has this line, so helpful right now. He wrote, "Our sins sweep us away like the wind." It's the nature of sin. It's the nature of not being at peace with God. Is that you cannot live eternally without your eternal Creator. It's not going to happen. And Jesus is inviting us to look ahead to where we want to be when this life is over. The life you are building right now. Listen, this life is not about this life. Trusting Jesus ultimately is to listen to him teach us that it is not so much about what you build or what you build or I build or what she builds. It's about where we build that makes all of the difference. And he is inviting us to build in a safe place. A place where we won't be disappointed later. This is the one who also said, "I came to seek and to save the lost." This is the one who said, "I am the way and the truth and the life." Jesus knows that he faced the deadliest part of our storm for us when he came to earth and he died for your sin and my sin. It's why he went through the suffering and the trials of the cross and died for us. He did it for us, facing the deadliest part of our storm. Then he rose from the grave, he defeated death, and that all gave him a right to wrap his righteousness around you. So that the moment you put your trust in him, everything he's taught and told, because of who he is, you become a child of God. There is no question when you show up to heaven who you belong to. But you are absolutely, it is because you are wearing the righteousness of Jesus without blemish, without spot, nothing to hide, nothing to be ashamed of. This is what puts us in the family. Now, back to building one more time. Like, isn't it special when you're building something and you know that it's not for next year? But it's for generations. You have a right to know when you are building something that could last forever. So build well, but it all starts on what you build on. Trusting ultimately this week, you should have the joy in everything you do to know that when you found it on Jesus, it's gonna be there forever. So I want to give us a moment to make some choices right now. Great posture right now would be sort of a prayer posture. If you want to close your eyes, bow your heads, or today, maybe you need to pray by looking up in the open skies, hearing those birds. But I want to ask this dare to break trusting Jesus down to listen, obey, listen, obey, listen, obey. I want to ask you this week, No matter who you are, where you're from, this could even be your first Sunday. If you're a person today that over the course of the last 30 minutes you realized, I've got some areas in my life where I want to listen better or listen more, or I am listening, I want to obey better or obey more. If there is one area in your life that you're ready to put some teeth to this week, nobody's looking around, but I want you to make a move. Put your hand in the air. If you've got an area that you want to work on listening and obeying this week, put it up. Because I want to pray for you. Yeah, there's lots of us. If you can think of one area in your life where you can trust better, trust Jesus better by how much you listen and how much you obey, let's pray. Father, for everybody here today who wants to take a next step, God, I just want to ask that you would be so gracious to them. Father, bring your word to life to them. Father, make it easy for them. Maybe just a few days in a row to get back to the basics of where they sit when they look to read your stuff, or how they listen. Father, I pray that you protect some quiet time for them in a supernatural way so that we can become better listeners. And then, Father, when we hear you, Father, I pray that you would give us each the grace to drill down to some next steps and figure out how we plan to obey what we've heard. Lord, there's such a spectrum of ways that we want to trust you more. And Father, I'm just so excited to see so many hands and realize that our church is about to get some great gains this week because of how we build and where we build. Father, I want to say thank you. We praise you ahead of time. But Father, we know it comes down to our intentions as we build this life, that we build it on you. Jesus, we want to praise you that you are faultless. We know that you are eternal and we're attached to you. We trust you for that. Crowd, as we continue to pray, I want to reach out to anybody who's on the hill right now, and you're saying in your heart, man, today is like the first day that I'm trusting Jesus with anything at all. I want to encourage you to trust your entire life, your entire heart to him, because he gave away his perfect life for you so that your life could be saved. And if today is a day that you want to put your trust in him for the first time, then listen, I want to share a prayer that I prayed, that you can make these words yours. And as you're praying them in your heart and your head to Jesus, just put your hand in the air so that I can be praying with you as I pray for you. You would just say this: Father, I don't want my sin to sweep me away. I want to end up closer to you. And Father, today I ask you to forgive all of my sins on account of what Jesus did on the cross. I want to be free from all of that. I want to know what eternal life is like today in this skin, knowing that you've got a whole nother life and a whole family that you're welcoming me into. Father, thank you for Jesus. Today, I'm putting my trust in you and no more in myself. And I pray these things in your name. Amen. Man, I saw some hands in the air for all of that. I praise God for that. We've got some Connect cards. We'd love for you to fill that out. Let us know what your next step is. Let us know how we can pray for you this week. Or catch any one of our leaders. We'd love to pray for you today. I'd love to hear your story. What an exciting thing that we've talked about today. That decision by decision, we can build well. I know you got Father's Day brunch you want to get to. So listen, happy Father's Day. Stay as long as you want. The great thing about being outside is you can linger. Don't forget, we've got some photo ops. Dads, we got some cold Dad's root beer waiting for you. We're so grateful that you shared the first part of your Father's Day with us so that we could make everything all about Jesus together. Heritage, I love you. We look forward to seeing you next week. You're dismissed.